Hey, what's up, you amazing hackers? Hope you're doing well today. Welcome back to the channel. Today I'd like to read a blog from one of my favorite hackers out there, Christy Vlad. Christy, if you're out there, leave a comment. Love you, man. This is probably the report that I'm most proud of. On top of that, it was the lengthiest I've ever written. I think I said it in the past, I'm not big into bug bounty hunting, but there are a handful of programs and platforms that I enjoy playing with, and this one isn't among them after the way they handled my report. Anyway, here's what I did. Real endpoint parameters and communication are different to protect the identity of the company. Number one, I found an endpoint that retrieves user data without authentication. The endpoint accepted a GET request to /ID/xxx and then a number, question mark, birthday, and a birthday and date format. And it responded with ID, first name, last name, and date of birth, and a few other pieces of personal information. So we need two pieces of information: the 13-digit ID and the birthday to receive a valid response. What I did next was to see how the server responded on an invalid ID and an invalid birthday. For the invalid ID, it simply responded with something along the lines of, "We don't know this ID." Now, for a valid ID, but for an invalid birthday, it responded with something along the lines of, "The birthday we have for this ID does not match the one provided." Alright, game on. Let's first brute force a valid ID using Intruder. I simply added a payload for the last 5 remaining digits and hit start attack. After not even 5 attempts, rate limiting kicked in and I was stopped. I believe it took 30 to 60 minutes until I was able to hit the API again. Obviously, I didn't see that coming, but for this first hurdle, simply adding an X-forwarded host header to the request using a battering ram attack did the trick. After a few minutes, I had a few valid IDs. Now for the fun part, how do I brute force those birthdays? Remember, this is an unauthenticated request and I need a valid ID and a valid birthday to retrieve the user information. The birthday is in the format day dash month dash year. How do I go about it? Here is my rationale. This is a company with this type of profile/user. The most probable age range would be of 20 to 40. In reality, this wasn't the case, but I'm protecting the company's identity. I need a list of all of the birthdays starting from January 1st, 1983 to maybe get a few hits. Where can I find the list of this? The answer is probably nowhere in this exact format, so I should just do it myself. I'll use Python. Okay, how can I do it faster? I know instead of coding it myself, I'll just use GPT-4 and have it done for me in seconds. I'm decent with Python, but I don't need to reinvent the wheel. Let the AI do it better, faster. The first few lines of the script the AI came up with was importing a date time, importing time delta and a date, and defining a date range. A few seconds later, the list was ready for me and downloaded as a TXT file from ChatGPT-4's code interpreter, now advanced data analysis. Next, I used the Intruder with another battering ram attack with payloads for the birthday and also the X-forwarded host header. So to recap, the first use of Intruder gave me valid IDs. Now using one of those IDs and Intruder, I brute forced for a valid password. Just one of my intermezzo's as well, the X-forwarded header is a really good way to get around rate limiting. The beauty of it was that it worked like a charm. It took a couple of minutes for Intruder to run through all the birthdays to find the correct one. That status go to 100. Beautiful, isn't it? What does a reckless/careless company do when they are presented with this sort of information? Brute forcing/rate limiting bypass is out of scope. I knew this was not fair, but I was not upset at all. Instead, I was really proud of myself for going this far to put up with this attack scenario. I worked some hefty hours to pull it through and actually succeeded. And I replied to them something along these lines as, "This is probably the lengthiest and most comprehensive report I ever sent. I did it because it shares characteristics of personal data that usually appears in data breaches, full names, birthdays, IDs, and with a bit of a stretch, emails could also be extracted. I did it because despite rate limiting being out of scope, I was easily able to bypass it and collect personal information. If you decide to keep this out of scope, please at least choose to fix it out of respect for the personal data of the hundreds of thousands of users or more that is exposed through this security issue. And I moved on. This company has already rewarded me for other serious vulnerabilities, and I decided not to actively engage with them in the future. Good job, Christy. That earns my follow for sure, and a big clap from me. If you guys are interested, I will have Christy's socials linked in the description below, as well as this article. I would really appreciate it if you headed over there and gave my friend a clap. Thank you so much, amazing hackers. You've been awesome. If you want to learn more about ethical hacking or bug bounties, go to the xssrat.com and use code RAD. I'll see you in the next one. Bye, amazing hackers.